Now, the final part of it is what's the SIS Rick thing? Because you hear a lot about this anti-botnet code of practice. Nothing surprising here. So part of the homework is read through this document, right? There's nothing really surprising of it. What happened with SIS Rick? SIS Rick's been around for a while. There's been SIS Rick 1, 2, 3. We're in SIS Rick 3 right now. This is one of the things that the FCC does in the United States to make sure we have critical, resilient telecommunications infrastructure. There's nothing in there that is like dictated. It's all voluntary sort of stuff. And operators do different things, you know, in different ways to actually make it happen, but it puts guidelines on the table, right? In this SIS Rick 3, these are the working groups going on. There's a working group 11 that got fired out, but it hasn't been announced, but these are the working groups going on. Botnet remediation, Michael O'Riordan, who's running around here, is one of the co-chairs of that one as part of MAAWG. So this is a MAAWG activity. So this is one of the things of those of you who've been long-time MAAWG things. MAAWG has been right in the middle of it, and here's some of the groups on it. This is what the charter says, right? You can read what the charter says. It's a voluntary code, right? Each ISP is asked to do, so there's nothing mandatory with it. It's a voluntary code. And here's the key things that people are asked to do. Educate, detect, notify, provide. And what you'll see with it is voluntary, technology neutral, approach neutral, respect privacy, right? These are kind of like, you know, the principles around with the code. But within the code, you know, the effectiveness, communication, these are the key things. So what you're being asked to do as an operator is to do something to educate your customers. Doesn't say what, it just says do something to educate, reach out, okay? It says do something to detect the botnets, right? There's no like big, you know, super systems you have to deploy. It just says do something to detect. I subscribe to shadowserver.org. You're doing something to detect. So you can say I'm compliant. Do something to notify. I got an email notification system. Okay? I'm doing something to notify. Okay? I'm doing a remediation system. And that's probably one of the areas where you have to put the expense, but there's systems you can put out there to do like maybe DNS RPZ, right, with bind, which is, you know, open source. And then you can use that as a quarantine system. And then collaborate, right? Collaborate with the community. Or I'm part of MAAWG and I share data with the collaboration, or I work with other people in the community. So it's not an onerous sort of code, but it is a step forward sort of code, right? So the approach with it. So when you walk through this education, you know, put some of the education stuff out there. Those people here who are in the United States, you had the old NIAC recommendations where it said every organization should have a /security page. And you can start with something like that and say, here's the education page on the /security page, right? You know, things to put education. There's organizations you can team up with. You don't have to do the education yourself. You can team up with an organization that specializes on doing anti-botnet activity and team up with them and put materials that way. So if you, instead of you hiring somebody to do the educational materials, you can partner. A lot of these groups would love the partner. It says, oh yeah, I'm partnered with this big service provider. That's really good. It gives them credit, and then, you know, they're already producing the materials that you just, you know, use with your customers. Detection, right? You can deploy your own tools, or you can take and set up your telemetry where you're feeding other organizations. There's a lot of different organizations you could actually work with who will then process the data and give you back, here's what we're seeing on your network. And you don't have to staff that. All you have to do is set up the agreements where you're feeding the data over for that. Interesting thing on notification is Appendix 2, when they say in SIS Rick, Appendix 2, it says, oh, here's a bunch of ways of doing it. And actually, you know, after the fact, you know, we ripped through it and we forgot to put it in Appendix 2, that different techniques. You know, like here's the quarantine techniques and here's the remediation techniques. Here's a DNS way of doing it. Here's a DHCP way of doing it. Here's a radius way of doing it. You know, those are things that were missed out. So that's something that, you know, I'm probably going to stick on the wiki. It says, here's ways of doing it with DHCP. Here's ways of doing it with DNS. Here's ways of doing it with radius. so you can kind of see the different ways that people have been doing it before, of doing the notifications and doing the email notifications and the walled garden notifications and stuff. For the remediation part, here it talks about, botnets are stealthy, right? So you need to figure out a way to notify with the stealthy botnets and, provide tools so you can go out there and say, here's a cleanup tool. Because the remediation is like, how do I clean it up off the system? So notifying is one tool, right? Another tool is then, okay, it's infected, how do I clean it up? And different people have different approaches, different, this is always a hard part, doing the cleanup part. Please download this tool. And this is why, again, working with the community, you can't do it isolated. You got to work with the antivirus community and the operating system community to come up with ways to actually do the cleanup, right? So a group like, a community like MAAWG, being part of MAAWG is a benefit. And I think MAAWG is evolving itself to go down this path where you can say, okay, here's a new piece of malware, reach out to the MAAWG community, what are you using to clean up? So DNS Changer was really interesting because you had competitors, a whole bunch of service providers on the phone call, right? We'd have these weekly phone calls, and basically we were people comparing, who's working with this vendor, antivirus vendor? I am. It says, what are they telling you? Well, they're telling me this for cleanup. Well, they told me this. Okay, why don't we use this tool? Who's tried this cleanup tool? Who's tried that cleanup tool? So you're basically having help desk people comparing notes about how to set up the cleanup, and everybody's sharing the information, collaborating with each other. So again, another benefit of the collaboration is here, there was no problem with any of those guys sharing off their help desk cleanup because it impacts everybody. Right? So highly recommend that. I think part of the remediation work that isn't in the SIS Rick work is the collaboration part is key, which is this part here in the collaboration. So in this, and I'm just going to flip through these two slides because we're time constrained. This is just kind of, I throw something in there about CapEx issues and OpEx and stuff. If you wanted to do ABC compliance in the shoestring, then what I would do, to start out, is create a /security page and find one of the public groups that, fight botnets and educate customers about fighting botnets and team up with them. Call them up and say, hey, I want to do an alliance. I need to do an education page. I don't have the staff to staff it the full time. What can we do together to actually team up and set up my page for my customers, right? Where you benefit from that is because they are full-time out there fighting the fight. When they come up with new updates of how to actually work with customers, you get that access to the information too. Your customers benefit from that. So that's a shortcut. So that way you don't have to hire a full-time staff to do that. You're teaming with somebody to do that, right? And of course, it looks good because you're collaborating, right? So it looks good in that part. On the detection part, subscribe to the free feeds, Shadow Server, Cumry, Microsoft, the ones I listed out there. Subscribe to those feeds, right? Yes, you probably want to get towards deploying your own detection systems, right? Because they will be very granular to what you're doing, but this is kind of like a shortcut on a shoestring. Remediation, same as education. Team up with somebody for remediating, okay? And on the notification, set up an email system and check on the billing system. And then the collaboration, deploy passive DNS. Learn about passive DNS. I can't emphasize more. The more people we get send in passive DNS information off your resolvers into the system that's set up with the Security Information Exchange, it just uncovers what's going on, what the bad guys are doing, just massively. And if you're looking for a way to share data live and not violate any privacy issue, passive DNS is set up to do that. Because passive DNS is set up where none of your user, it doesn't matter what your users are doing. You're looking at the resolver information, everything from the resolvers up. So there's no IP addresses sent. It's just sending traffic from the resolvers up. And what that does is it protects the privacy of you and your users, right? And violates the privacy of the bad guys, which is what we want. We want to uncover what they do, right? And anytime you feed, you get access to all that information. So that particular step will say, yes, we do collaboration because we do passive DNS. And we benefit from that. So there's ABC compliance in a shoestring. You can, it's not, the SIS Rick ABC code is a step forward, but it's not designed to be an onerous sort of requirement. But if we get everybody doing just this sort of shoestring sort of thing, we're moving the whole industry forward from a ability to respond to the criminals and really whack down some of the botnets. So that the next time we have something like DNS Changer, we'll have even more service providers able to knock down the botnets, because we will have more of these, okay, we got a botnet, we got to whack it down activities, right? We're getting better at it from an industry collaboration standpoint, right? So, expect that with it. So wrapping up now, I'm going to take some questions, on camera, and then we'll take questions off camera too. And I'll be hanging out here after lunch because we're at wrap-up time. But I got the wiki page. Materials are all there. You can download them. If you want the PowerPoints, just email me. I'll send you the PowerPoints, the PDFs up there. There's a bunch of documents I put up there for reading materials. Europe did a bunch of materials. There's links to the Japan site, the Australian iCode. So there's a whole bunch of reading materials in there. So if you needed to convince your boss that, hey, this is common, we need to do something. The links to the let me get information from like Shadow Server and others are in there. Microsoft is all, listed out there. And then as you guys ask questions, I'll probably sit back this afternoon and go like, oh, I should post this up there. I'll post more up there, which is the point of the wiki, right, out there. And then, you look at it 6 months from now, I'll probably have been doing this again, some other form, and then it will be updated materials. So it's kind of like how we've been doing the materials with it. So it's one of the things to keep an eye on. Thank you for attending. Hopefully you guys will go back and do something. If you have any issues and you need help with it, just email me. I'll see if I can help you out convincing your bosses. And looking forward to seeing you around with MAAWG this week. And I'll be around afterwards off camera questions. Thank you very much. Yeah.